Hi everyone, welcome to Cummins PowerPods. My name is Ashish Aggarwal. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for Cummins India. And today it's going to be my delight, honor and privilege to be interviewing Jim Schacht, who's the Head of Corporate Responsibility for Cummins Inc. He's come all the way from Indiana to be with us, and I look forward to having this conversation with him.
Hello, my name's Jim Schacht. I'm Vice President of Corporate Responsibility at Cummins. I am delighted today to join our Cummins PowerPods to be interviewed by my very good friend, Ashish Aggarwal. I have a confession to make.
Yeah?
This will be the first time I've told you this, and I don't want you to get nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first podcast I've ever done.
Oh, that is so strange.
Isn't that?
It's amazing because it's mine first too.
Well, there we go.
So there you go.
We'll do it together.
But I think I have been watching more podcasts than probably you have been watching.
I don't know. I'm a big podcast fan.
Right.
And you know why?
Why?
We own 2 little dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And in our household, guess whose job it is to walk those dogs?
Yours.
Yes, of course. And I do so multiple times a day. And you know what I listen to during the dog walks?
What is that?
Podcasts.
Great.
Exactly. So here we are, our first podcast.
It's amazing and it's interesting.
Excellent. What would you like to talk about?
You told me last evening, Jim, that India holds a special place for you. Why is that?
That's an excellent question. There's multiple reasons. One, it was my first international trip. 25 years ago on business, I came to Bangalore in the company previous to Cummins. And I had such an overwhelmingly positive experience that I've been coming back ever since. I've been multiple times, and I love the country for its vibrancy, for its color, for its people, for its economy. There's everything about it that is energizing to me. And there's another reason that my wife, Sally, loves India. She too has traveled, and she gets very excited.
Wonderful. We are delighted to have you here. And it is always, always a pleasure to have you come see what we do here. Come and see what impact we are having here. Come and see how the country as a whole is growing.
Yeah.
And how much we are able to contribute to the success story. Moving into the community side of things, Cummins has always been very serious and very committed to corporate citizenship. Ever since I have been in this company and have been a while, I always see communities are on every leader's vision, goal, everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's Jen's vision or whether it's the India leader's vision, communities are always there. Why?
The concept of corporate citizenship is extremely important to our company and always has been. It's part of our history, it's part of our heritage, it's part of our culture, it's part of our values. We started a journey as a company to try to realize and fulfill an aspiration which has to do with difficult questions such as, what does a responsible corporate citizen in its community look like? And we've been thinking about that ever since. And so some of the ways we've come to think about it, first of all, we have a stakeholder model. And we believe that our commitment to our communities is an equal part to our commitments to other stakeholders that we interact with, whether it's our customers, whether it's our employees, whether it's our suppliers, our partners, or even our shareholders. So in the fabric of the company, the concept of corporate citizenship has been embedded to a point where the result is exactly as you described.
But segueing that point into another question I had in my mind was, the world is a complex place. And every region, every country, every continent has different problems, different cultures, different habits, different governments. So how does Cummins navigate these complex waters and be able to contribute in spite of this rather confusing complexity of the world that we live in.
Indeed. The world is complex, and you and I know, because we've had many conversations in this regard, it's getting even more complex every day. We've thought a lot about this. Again, we've been working on how do we affect positive change in our communities, those that in which we work and live, and what should be the operating model. And we've worked on this over a long period of time. And what we've come to is what I believe is a uniquely effective operating model to strike the balance that you're suggesting. And that is that we have a local team, or a global team, and a centered team. We have regional teams, and now we have in-community teams. And this is our operating model, so that we have a center team that thinks about strategy, thinks about how to focus our resources to affect change, identifies our strategic priority areas, which, as you know, are education, equity, and the environment. But we don't try to over-prescribe. We have a saying which is, think globally, lead regionally, act locally.
Oh, I love that.
And that's our operating model. And what that affords is at a central point, which is a conversation on where do we want to focus our energies in this complex and increasingly complex world. And we've identified these focus areas. But then we look to the regional leaders to be our eyes and ears, effectively the lens to interpret the objectives that we have.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And fit to market what the societal needs are in a particular region, of which we have 8 regions around the world, as you appropriately suggested, are very different. And then we look to our local teams, of which we have 425 around the world.
Yeah.
To actually engage in our communities, to understand that specific community need, who the leaders are, identify the right partners, and implement change. So we have a model that has consistency globally in where we're focusing our energies, but is flexible to take into account that complexity you just mentioned.
So my next question, Jim, is, I love what you just said. I think corporate citizenship, corporate responsibility are exceedingly important for any company which is functioning here, anywhere in the world. But what intrigues me a little bit is, how do you marry corporate responsibility with the Cummins sustainability goals?
Yeah.
So what is that link? What is that connection? What is that dependence of one on the other? That keeps intriguing me. Could you throw some light on that?
Yeah. It's a great question, and we've thought about it over a long period of time. And so we've taken the concept we talked about a moment ago of a responsible corporate citizen and moved it into an organizational model. So we have a function we call corporate responsibility, in which we think about that engagement model with our communities, whether it's volunteering, whether it's community relations, whether it's corporate giving. And so then the question is, how does that align with the corporation and its objectives? Over the period of time we've been thinking about this, we've come to the observation that we should focus on the intersection between company imperatives and community imperatives. And that's how we think about the link. The reason is that we want to leverage the skills in our company, lead with our time and talent, which is of greater contribution than simply grants. So that's one. The second is, we think it's mutually supportive if we're always aligned with what's important to the company and then extend that into the community. So that's the model. In terms of the environment and sustainability, we start then with the company. And so, as you know, our company strategy is Destination Zero.
Absolutely.
And the driver there is climate change and an objective, which is our growth model, to reduce our emissions to zero, hence Destination Zero. And that is in response to the external environment around climate change. And if we as a company are trying to address the cause of climate change, then the question for those of us who think about community and adding value, we start looking into the community and realize that the cause leads to the effect, which is water, which is why we focus on water. And so we have a community set of objectives. It's driven around water. It is aligned with the company's strategy. And then to your question, if you think about sustainability, our sustainability metrics, our sustainability report, our metrics around community are embedded in that company report. So there is a linkage. We think it's an advantage. We think we have greater impact in our communities from leveraging what we do internally, and that's how we think about it.
Great. But that linkage, let me probe you a little bit more on that. That linkage that you talk about, is it a direct proportion, or do you see a multiplier effect on the work we do in the communities and the impact on our sustainability goals?
Absolutely. The intent is to create a multiplier effect.
Right.
One of the ways, one of the consequences of thinking about the linkage is it starts to rule out where we should not be.
Right.
Medical is always an example we use. There are experts in the medical field. Think hospitals. They have corporate responsibility initiatives. They should focus on those because they bring skills that can affect change. The multiplier is for us always to be aligned with where our skills reside, where we can bring added time and talent into the communities. So there is a multiplier effect. If we just pick anything at random, our ability to affect change in the communities is minimized.
Right.
If we pick something that we have subject matter expertise in within our company, then our leverage increases and we can affect change at a far greater level.
Great. I just asked you about India, and you mentioned you love coming here, and you have, your wife loves India, and you love to bring your kids. So, how do you think India is contributing in terms of the global Cummins sustainability goals? And the part B of my question would be, what impresses you most of the work that we do here? Since you've been here a couple of days, you've seen some of it. So I'll divide the question into two parts. So whichever you want to go first.
India has a long history of environmental contribution, projects, and value added. We globally learned from the projects that originally started here in India. There is another dynamic which you mentioned earlier, which is India as a country is growing.
Yeah.
And when we think about our global footprint in regards to community, whether it's volunteering, whether it's community engagement, or whether it's corporate giving, India is growing as well at phenomenal rates. The benefit to us is the base of experience that exists here in India. There are deep relationships that our community teams have engaged in our community over a long period of time. As you know, the dynamic in the communities within India is very local. So you need to earn the trust of local leaders on why you're involved in things other than whatever your core business is. And what I've observed is that we've earned that trust. And over time, we've leveraged it in the most positive way to work with our community leaders to identify and understand what's most important to them.
Right.
And then there are endless projects where we have gone in, small scale and large scale, to affect positive change. I'll give one example, which is one that I often use as a case study in conversations elsewhere outside of India of what it looks like in terms of our model. And that is local teams identifying a problem relevant and important to the community, finding partners with the subject matter expertise, and then affecting change. So as you know well, but I'll describe it, the project itself. In Maharashtra, which is the state we are in as we speak,
right,
about 6 years ago, there was a real crisis related to the monsoons and the subsequent impact on farming. And monsoon and the drought kind of cycle was increasing, and the monsoons were washing away the topsoil.
Right.
There was no ability to capture the water, and the aquifers were drained, and then the droughts were wreaking havoc on the agriculture. There was, at the time, if I recall correctly, 60% of the villages experienced severe drought. The crop yields had dropped 50%, and farmers were not able to support their families. So our team identified that as a problem in the community that they wanted to address. I knew, back to our earlier conversation of leverage, they couldn't affect change themselves. They found subject matter expertise to identify soil management techniques, farming techniques, and then they went into the communities, into the villages, and educated the farmers, helped them with the new methodologies that they had learned, and the results have been amazing. So we just completed a 5-year study. We've now been able to realize and reach 64 villages.
Yeah.
We've planted trees, 80,000 trees. We've had almost 4 billion gallons of water benefits. The crop yields have increased about 70%, and the income to the farmers is up 150%. So that's an example of the extreme productivity of the projects in India.
Right.
It's a marquee one that's now a best practice example, and I find it everywhere I go in the country.
Great. I'm glad you said that because, as I keep telling you, that India is a country of traditions, cricket, and relationships. So we have to straddle those 3 domains to make a major impact. Cricket we can't do, but we do traditions and relationships. More relationships than traditions. So I'm glad you look at it this way, because as India grows and as we grow further, we are already the most populated country in the world. As you know, we have overtaken China last year. So as the intellectual capital of the country goes, I think the more community work we do here reflects better on us in terms of impact and numbers. So I think that's a great observation you just made. Not to put you on a spot, but if you travel around the world, which you do, what are the 1 or 2 very significant differences you see on how we take care of corporate responsibility in India versus other regions of the world? What are a couple of key things which stand out for you, either negative or positive?
Yeah. I think that India is unique in that it is the only region that we operate in that has the statutory requirements related to corporations' profits having to be invested in the community. We operate in that way in all of our regions, but India is unique in that way. What it is afforded is that you must have, as a consequence, because of the reporting, the tracking, the governmental filing and requirements, it affords the opportunity to build internal subject matter expertise.
Right.
So when I observe the team here, all our teams are passionate and capable and dedicated and operate with a sense of responsibility. That's true here, and you've built a team with deep subject matter experts.
Right.
Attracting people with subject matter experts in different areas of development.
That is true.
And that gives you a unique opportunity to identify problems, identify the right nonprofits, and really affect change, including engaging with the government.
Yep.
In collaborative partnership to affect change. Right. We try to do that in all our regions, but it isn't as robust because you don't have the statutory requirement which creates the base to allow you to do that. I think all our regions are absolutely terrific. India stands apart in that way. And then back to our previous conversation, some of the projects that I see here are best practices we can port elsewhere because you've learned it here with your subject matter expertise, and then we can benefit from that.
I'm so glad to hear that. Super excited. So one of the things, Jim, which makes me very proud of working in Cummins is the way we involve our employees to participate in corporate responsibility. Could you talk more about that?
Thanks for that question, because it is one of the most exciting things about our approach to corporate responsibility. And I've always felt it is also one of the things that makes us unique. We have an operating model, which we talked about, which has different layers. We have a central group, we have regional groups, and then we have these community involvement teams. 425 different locations around the world, which are communities in which we work and live, that engage in our communities and create opportunity for people to volunteer. So in the language of philanthropy, you have time, you have talent, and you have treasure, which for us is corporate grants. And our unique model, and we've always believed this is the way to have the greatest impact, is we lead with time and talent. And then we support our employees' efforts with our corporate grants. We're unique not only in the fact that we lead with our employees' time and talents, we allow them to determine the projects they want to work in, and they participate in our grant-making process. Right. So all of our employees can apply for grants for the NGOs that they're working with in their communities. I think it's super exciting. The consequence of that is it strengthens our company. I have always thought, and I believe, that corporate responsibility is integral to our company's future success. And it gets back to what you've described. Employees in our company are either attracted to Cummins because of what we do in our communities, because that reflects our history, our heritage, our culture, and our values, and they're attracted to that. Or when they get to the company, they realize that's part of being part of our company, and they stay. So it's integral to attracting and retaining talent. But our leading with our employees' engagement is fundamental to how we think of corporate responsibility and to the positive impact that we can have.
Yeah, that's so fantastic, because when I go out to external stakeholders, I keep telling them we just don't write checks. We
Exactly
include
right.
our people. And that is something not everybody does in this space.
It makes us very unique. It makes us unique. There is nothing but admiration for those foundations that have large endowments. They find issues they want to address, and they do write checks.
Right.
Our model is different. We write plenty of checks, but we lead with our time and talent. It makes us unique, and again, I think it makes us effective. It adds value not only to our company, but to all of us individually. It's extremely rewarding work.
You're so right, Jim. When I go to meet external stakeholders and they get to know that we're not a company that just writes checks, but includes and involves our employees to be part of the process, I get a lot of attention and I get a lot of surprise at times. And this is, I think, what makes me very proud to be here. And I'm sure that makes a lot of our employees very happy to find some meaning beyond work in a company like ours. And I'm happy to report that at least in India, we have over 10,000 employees who have contributed to corporate responsibility in some way or the other with their time.
It's absolutely amazing. I think it makes us unique, and then everyone should be proud of the impact it has in our communities.
That is so true, Jim.
So nice to be with you, Ashish.
Same here. I'm delighted that we could do this, and I look forward to the next one earlier than the first one.
Very good. Very good. I hope we get a chance to do another one soon.
Right.